Reflecting on my life, I think that the most important lesson that I could share would be that of the human potential. Growing up, I felt energetic, optimistic, and really confident, to be honest. I thought I could take on the world. And then all through elementary school, I thought it was a breeze. And then when I got to high school, I started taking math classes when I couldn't understand all of the curriculum. I started taking science classes that uh, I everything was going over my head, and English. I wasn't great at writing. I wasn't great at reading. I really hated reading. I mean, one day I was taking a math test, and after going through a few of the questions, I knew they were way over my head. I didn't understand them, so I just took my pencil. I wrote across the test. I said, I give up. I wrote it right across the test and I turned it in. I took a chemistry class, and I think 1 or 2 weeks into the class, I walked out and never came back. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it. I hated math so much that I went and talked to the school counselor and I said, hey, what is the absolute minimum that I need to graduate? He told me geometry. That was it. I took geometry, passed it. So, the bottom line is school did not come easy to me. You know, I, maybe I could have tried harder, probably. But I looked at other people and I saw that it was so easy for them that not everybody, but there were some that they were so smart, and I felt like, look, some people were born with the ability to be really good at math and science and English and whatever, and I wasn't. So I just thought I was going to have to rely on my people skills. I was good with people, and thought if I do anything in life, I was going to have to rely on that. And I had come to the conclusion that because I wasn't great in school, that I was never going to be able to get those, really prestigious jobs. That was for the people that were born really smart, and it wasn't for me. So honestly, after graduating high school, uh, that mindset that um, other people were born really smart and I was average or below average. That mindset really stuck with me for the next 10 years. And it really limited my view on what I would be able to accomplish. Fast forward 10 years, I was sitting down and I was watching this video. It was an interview with a lady named Carol Dweck. And she was talking about a book that she wrote, and it's called Mindset. Uh, in the book, she talks about how there are two types of people: those with a fixed mindset and those with a growth mindset. And she talks about how those with a fixed mindset believe that we are born with a certain level of intelligence. Some people are born really smart, and some people are not. And that throughout our life, maybe we can grow a little bit, but really we have a cap uh, that each of us will reach. Then she talked about those with a growth mindset. And she explained that those with a growth mindset understand that even if they don't know it now, or if it's something that they can't do now, they know that they can do it. They can learn it. Maybe they have to try harder than someone else, but the fact is that they know that their brain is able to grow and learn. And um, you know, she goes on into more detail, but as I listened to this, I realized that I had been living my life with a fixed mindset. I knew that I could learn and grow, and I was going to continue to learn and grow for the rest of my life. But really, I had this um, this limiting belief that I was only so smart at a certain level, and that if I continue to work and learn for the rest of my life, maybe I'll be able to grow a little bit. But regardless of how hard I try, I'll never be as smart as those people that were born naturally gifted. And that really, that belief, that deep belief, stuck with me throughout my life, and it really limited what I thought I was capable of doing. And so after listening to this story, I really reflected on my life, and I realized how limiting my beliefs were. And one thing led to another, and I actually started reading for the first time in my life. I started picking up all of these books, and as I started picking up these books, my confidence started growing, my understanding, and this realization that I can really become anything that I want to. I realized as I was reading some of these books that, I can learn about anything that I want. And I felt like I had actually graduated college, and man, I felt like as I was reading some of these books that I was learning and growing faster than I ever did in college. There was a book that I read not long after I had started reading books. It's called The Originals. It talks about nonconformity, people that don't want to conform to the status quo. But in that book, there were some things that he talked about that really had a strong impact on me. He talked about Bach, he talked about Mozart and Beethoven, and he talked about how there was this university that had gone out and compiled, or it was an organization that had gone out and compiled 50 of what they believed were the greatest classical pieces of all time. In those 50, 6 of those went to Mozart, 5 were to Beethoven, and 3 were to Bach. Now, well, here's the interesting part of those numbers. What you don't know, everybody knows that those 3 artists were phenomenal and extremely talented. But here's what you may not know, is that Mozart actually composed more than 600 pieces. Beethoven, 650, and Bach wrote over 1,000. And of all of those pieces, 6 for Beethoven, 5 for Mozart, and 3 for Bach. I realized that not every single thing that they did changed the world. And even Thomas Edison, right? How long did it take him to figure out how to create the light bulb? 1,000 attempts at least that he tried something and it didn't work. Another person that he talks about is Picasso. Picasso did more than 1,800 paintings, 1,200 sculptures, 2,800 ceramics, 12,000 drawings. And yet there's only a very small portion of those works that we actually recognize as significant. And so what I drew from all of this was that these people didn't only produce works that changed the world. They produced a lot of things that nobody cared about. And that for me was a confidence booster, because I realized that, hey, if I go out and I write something and if it's not the greatest, hey, some of the greatest people of all time did the same thing and nobody cared about it. Albert Einstein, we look at him at some of the things that he created, but there's only a few of them that we recognize, and yet he wrote 248 publications, and there's only a few that we talk about. So these people, they are committed to doing something regardless of what the world thinks. And as I learned about all of these things, I realized that, hey, maybe if I try and do something and if it doesn't change the world, that's okay. I just have to keep at it. And these people became significant not because they did that they changed the world after their first try, but because they kept trying over and over and over again. And I realized that I can do this. if I really want to accomplish something, if I try over and over and over again, even if my first 100, 500, 600 things aren't the greatest, eventually something will be. And that these people maybe became incredible, but we all know that Albert Einstein failed a math class. So we don't have to be born a savant or a genius, but we certainly can become one. And that realization is what changed everything for me. And so that is for me one of the most important messages that I could share. That I grew up thinking that I was born with a certain level of intelligence, and that would always limit me in my life. But the reality is, regardless of the level of intelligence that we're born with, we can become anything that we want to. And maybe it takes us 100, 200, 300, 1,000 tries. But those are the people that don't care what anybody else thinks, and they continue to do something because they believe in themselves. We can learn and become anything that we want to. And I think of everything that I've learned and of any message that I could share, that is the one that is the most important. From the bottom of my heart, I hope that I can share this message with as many people as possible that thought or are currently thinking the way that I used to. And even those that maybe think that they are smart. I think that the reality is, to some degree or another, that they still have a fixed mindset. I believe that most of us do not understand or do not comprehend to the full extent what we can achieve and become. And I think in order to realize that, we need to read more. We need to see that average, normal, everyday people can become people that change the entire world. And when we realize that that potential exists within each human being, regardless of what we are born with, I think that's when you're set free. I think that's when you're able to go out, spread your wings, and really go out and do things in the world. And as Steve Jobs said, we can poke the world, we can change it, we can have an effect on the world. And so that is what I would share with you today, is to not make the same mistake that I did and spend so many years living below your privilege. Evaluate yourself, look at your thinking, and determine, are you living below your means?